All right, are you ready for this? We're diving into the Bhagavad Gita today. I know you love spirituality and philosophy, and trust me, this ancient text has so much to offer, even, well, especially in our modern world. Don't worry, we won't be reading all 700 verses. We're getting you the highlights reel, the most practical and powerful stuff. Promise.
Exactly. Think of it like we're distilling the essence of the Gita just for you.
Love that.
Okay, so the Bhagavad Gita is this ancient Hindu scripture, part of a bigger epic called the Mahabharata. But basically, it's like a conversation, a dialogue between Prince Arjuna, a warrior about to go into this huge battle, and his charioteer, Krishna. But, and here's where it gets really interesting. Krishna isn't just any charioteer, right?
Right, there's always something more, isn't there?
Always. He reveals himself as, well, a divine incarnation. He's there to guide Arjuna through this really intense situation. And it's not just Arjuna he's guiding, it's kind of all of us through all of life's challenges.
I was going to say, because it starts with this epic battle, right? But it's so much more than just a war story. It's like a metaphor for the battles we all face in our own lives, you know? The decisions, the dilemmas, that feeling of being pulled in different directions, like what you should do versus what you want to do, you know?
100%. And that's what makes it still so powerful, even today. Arjuna's story is totally relatable, you know? We've all felt that pressure, like you're stuck, don't know what to do, and he's got this huge responsibility, right? It's his duty to fight. But the enemy, it's his own family, cousins, teachers, people he loves. Talk about a rock and a hard place, huh?
Seriously? Okay, so Arjuna's freaking out a little, which is completely understandable. What's Krishna say? Tell him to just, like, drop his weapons and walk away.
Not exactly. It's more complicated, more nuanced than that.
Huh.
Krishna says it's not about just not acting, because action is part of life, right? You can't just avoid it. The key is understanding the nature of action itself and the intention behind it. And that's where this idea of karma yoga comes in.
Okay, yeah, karma yoga. I've heard of it, but to be honest, it's always been a little fuzzy for me. It's just about, like, doing good things.
It's more about the energy you bring to your actions, the why behind the what, if you will. It's about showing up, doing what needs to be done, but not being, like, totally attached to the result. It's about letting go of needing a specific outcome, because the effort is what matters, right? Not whether you get praised or criticized for it. It's about that detachment.
So it's more about how you are, not just what you do.
Totally. And that actually leads to another big thing in the Gita, understanding the self, like the real you. Krishna says we're not these physical bodies, you know? We're eternal spirits, unchanging, indestructible.
At that voice in your head that never goes away.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. That's your true self, according to the Gita.
Okay, that's kind of blowing my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
So the Gita uses this analogy, right, about changing clothes to explain this whole, like, soul and reincarnation thing.
Yeah, it's such a great image, right?
It really is. The idea that when we die, the soul just kind of sheds the body, like an old coat, and puts on a new one. Death isn't the end. It's just part of this ongoing journey.
Exactly. And realizing that we're not just these physical bodies can change everything about how we see, well, everything.
So we've talked about the self, this, like, eternal part of us, but how do we connect with that? Like, actually live that truth in our everyday lives? How do we find that peace the Gita talks about when, let's face it, life can be pretty chaotic? Is that where karma yoga comes in?
Yeah, you got it. It's about, like, shifting our whole perspective on action itself.
Yeah.
You know, showing up, doing our best, but not getting hung up on the outcome.
Okay, easier said than done, though, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're human. We want things to go a certain way.
Oh, absolutely. And the Gita gets that. It's not about pretending we don't have desires or anything. It gives us practical ways to work with them.
Oh.
One of the biggies is, well, controlling the senses, stilling the mind.
Right, okay, getting down to the nitty-gritty now. I feel like this is what our listeners really here for, you know? Practical wisdom. And seriously, who couldn't use a little more stillness these days? So how do we do that, according to the Gita?
Well, it probably won't surprise you. Meditation is huge. But it's not just about, like, sitting there trying to blank out your thoughts. It's more about cultivating this inner awareness, right? Like, you can observe your thoughts and feelings without getting totally carried away by them.
So less about stopping your thoughts, more about changing how you relate to them.
Exactly. Like, realizing you're not your thoughts, you're the one noticing them.
Okay, that's a helpful distinction.
It creates space, you know, between you and that constant chatter in your mind. And from that space, that's where you can act from, a more grounded place.
That makes a lot of sense. So karma yoga, it's about acting with more awareness and less, well, clinging to the results. And these techniques for calming the mind, that's how we actually get that space to choose our actions in the first place.
Exactly. It's like it all works together. And it goes even deeper, you know? Like the Gita talks about seeing the divine in, well, everything, including ourselves.
Okay, hold on. Does that mean I have to start seeing, like, my annoying neighbor as a divine being? I'm not sure I'm quite there yet.
Uh, well, it's not about ignoring the annoying parts, right? More like remembering there's this spark of something bigger
Uh-huh.
in all of us, even or maybe especially in the people who drive us nuts. It's a way of like remembering we're all connected on some level.
Okay, so that's a practice for sure. So we've got karma yoga, understanding the self, stilling the mind, and then seeing that divine spark everywhere. But the Gita is a Hindu scripture, right? You
Yes.
said earlier its wisdom is universal. What about someone who isn't Hindu? How does it apply to them?
That's a great question. And it's actually one of the things that makes the Gita so cool. You know, it doesn't say there's only one right path to like connect with the divine or whatever you want to call it. It actually talks about for you different paths because
Uh-huh.
people connect in different ways.
Right. Oh, tell me more about these paths. This is fascinating.
And they're not meant to be limiting, like you have to choose one and that's it. Think of them more like approaches, each one emphasizing a different aspect of the journey. So first we have karma yoga, which we've been talking about. Then there's jnana yoga, the path of knowledge.
Okay, so if karma yoga is about action, what's it like to walk the path of knowledge?
Jnana yoga, it's about self-realization through studying, contemplating, really getting to the heart of like the nature of reality, those
Mhm.
big questions, you know, like who am I really? What is the universe? What's my place in all of this?
I can relate to that. Like, I love learning new things, diving deep into a topic, trying to really understand it.
There you go. And you don't have to be like a scholar or anything to benefit from that.
Mm.
It can be as simple as being curious about the world, reading books that challenge your thinking, even having good conversations, the kind that make you see things differently.
Love it. So we've got action and knowledge. What are the other two?
Right. So we also have Raja Yoga, which is the path of meditation.
We touched on that earlier, right? With stilling the mind.
Yeah, but Raja Yoga takes it even further. It's all about techniques like breath work, focusing the mind. You quiet the mind to experience the divine within.
Almost like a workout for your brain, then, building up those mental muscles.
So that's a great way to put it. And then finally, we have Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion.
Ooh, this one sounds really interesting. What's it like to walk the path of devotion?
This one's all about love. Cultivating love and surrender to, well, something greater than yourself. It could be a deity, nature, a spiritual teacher, even like a cause you're super passionate about. It's about directing that love outward, seeing that divine spark everywhere.
So it's about cultivating that sense of awe and wonder, gratitude for something bigger than yourself.
Beautifully said. And here's the important part. You don't have to just pick one of these paths,
Yeah.
right? Like they can all work together. They can even enhance each other.
That's really cool. I can see how someone might connect with different paths at different times in their life, even combine them, create their own unique practice.
Exactly. And that's what I love about the Bhagavad Gita. It's not trying to fit everyone into the same box, you know? It's an invitation to find what resonates with you, what speaks to your heart and helps you, well, navigate this crazy thing called life.
It's like the Gita is this toolbox, right? And it's
Mhm.
full of all these different tools and practices, and we get to choose what works for us, what we need right now.
I love that. And like any toolbox, the more you use the tools, the more comfortable you get with them, the better you become at using them to, handle whatever comes your way.
And speaking of handling things, we were talking before about how the Gita is set during a battle, but it's really about facing any kind of challenge, right? So how do these different paths fit into that?
Such a good question. Because it brings us back to the core message of the Gita. It's about finding that inner peace, that clarity, no matter what's going on around you.
So not about avoiding the tough stuff altogether, it's about how we approach it.
Exactly. So think about it. Karma yoga, it's about acting with purpose without being like totally consumed by the outcome.
Right, like that work project. You give it your all, but you don't let the possibility of failure or even success completely take over your life.
Yes. And then jnana yoga, the path of knowledge, it helps you zoom out a little,
Hmm.
see things from a bigger perspective. Obstacles, setbacks, they're not a sign you've messed up. They're part of the journey.
It's about trusting the process.
Exactly. And then when those thoughts start spiraling, you know the ones, Raja Yoga steps in with the meditation, the mental discipline. It's like you create this space between you and your thoughts. You're not at their mercy.
Creating that calm in the center of the storm.
Perfectly said.
Yeah.
And then there's Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion. Reminds us we're not in this alone, whether
Yeah.
it's connecting with the divine, with nature, with the people we love. It's about tapping into something bigger than ourselves.
This has been amazing, really insightful, and it makes me think the Gita really is universal, isn't it?
It is. And that's part of why it's so powerful, even thousands of years later. It's not a list of rules. It's a guide to living a more meaningful life, no matter who you are or where you come from.
So for our listener, what would you say is the main takeaway? How can they start to actually apply all of this to their own life?
Honestly, the beauty of the Gita is that there's no one right answer. It's an invitation to explore. Be curious. Find what speaks to you.
So if something we talked about today resonated with you, whether it's karma yoga or the self or meditation, trust that. Don't be afraid to dive in and learn more.
Right. Pick up a copy of the Bhagavad Gita. There are tons of great translations out there. Or maybe check out some groups or teachers in your area.
Think of this deep dive as just the beginning, really.
It is. The real journey starts when you start to actually live these teachings. See how they can help you face your own battles, big or small, with everything the Gita talks about. Clarity, courage, peace.
Beautifully said. And hey, remember how Arjuna found guidance from Krishna on the battlefield? You've got that same wisdom within you. It's there, waiting to be discovered. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Bhagavad Gita. Keep seeking, keep exploring, and we'll catch you next time.